Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. Today we are continuing our dive into the heroes of For Honor, analyzing them for their lore, historical inspirations, playstyle, design, and overall feel. When the Wulin were added to For Honor, one character among them really grabbed everyone's attention, and he is arguably still the most popular and played character from the Wulin faction. Today we're talking about my main monkey monk, Shaolin. As always with the Wulin, very little lore is given to us directly. In fact, as you all know, there were no individual hero trailers for each Wulin hero except for Zanhu, so I shall first give you the lore that Ubisoft has ordained with us, and then I shall give you the lore I've added. According to the For Honor Wikipedia page on Shaolin, it reads, The Order of Shaolin was formed long before the Cataclysm, when the first monks established a monastery and shared their martial skills with their followers. After the Cataclysm, a civil war enveloped the Empire, and the monks honed their warrior skills to preserve a spirituality that was quickly disappearing from the world. If that meant to clench fists, then these warrior monks would be ready. Today, they spend their days praying, training, and fighting. They hold their prayers close to them at all times, and deliver their message with a spiritual force that's unmatched. End quote. Well, I like it, but it's a little vague. So, as of this point, as of right now, know that everything I'm going to share with you is my own lore for Shaolin. So please understand, as of now, this is all my own original take, okay? Alright. I'll go a step further. When the Civil War first began in China, the Shaolin monks at first wanted to remain out of the wars and not get involved. Theirs was the way of enlightenment and passivity. Let others do their warring and fighting. They won't take any sides unless one side is truly evil and the other righteous. But the warlords fighting over China couldn't risk the Shaolin choosing against them, for the monks had hoarded weapons, treasures, and resources, and whoever the Shaolin decided to side with, well, they just had that much bigger of an advantage. So, further support of the Shaolin for any warlord could turn public approval as well, given their theological ties. So, to level the playing field, the monks' temples were destroyed, the treasures stolen, and the weapons looted. Without their temples and their places of worship, the power and authority of the Buddhist temples were weakened, and the monks that survived were truly isolated. Now, with only their staves and their anger, the monks have decided that theirs will be the way of the warrior. They will fight their enemies and bring their message at the end of their staves and their own martial prowess. So that is essentially what I've come up with the monks' lore, and I think it works pretty well. But if that is the monks' lore, if that's their area within For Honor, what about their historical areas? What about their historical inspiration? Let's talk about their history. Now, for full details on the Shaolin's historical inspirations, I would recommend watching my Heroes in History video on them. Link will be in the description. But for just a brief rundown, I think it's fairly obvious who they're based on. Shaolin is based on the Shaolin monks of history and the real world today. The Shaolin Temple is an existing Buddhist monastery in Jingzhou Prefecture. Largely considered one of the most popular and well-known Buddhist temples in the world, as well as the birthplace of Shaolin Kung Fu, even to this day, the Shaolin monks dedicate themselves to the martial practices as well as prayers, art, and cultural studies that their temple was known for. The temple has a very long and rich history dating all the way back to the Northern Wei dynasty, and it has involved itself in various conflicts, disasters, and cultural changes over the centuries of its existence. The monks that dwell there themselves do not practice martial arts strictly for combat's sake, but more to master their own bodies through discipline and self-control, though this makes them no less skilled and effective in combat than any other warrior would be. In fact, one thing that's rather interesting about the Shaolin monks of today is that many of them have achieved physical capabilities seemed otherworldly and unnatural through their training, and it is largely studied and little understood by the scientific community how they've done this. But for full detail and a full breakdown of some of their more historical roots and some of their feats, go check out the Heroes in History video. Again, that link is in the description. But now that we've talked about their history, let's talk about their design and their builds. We got a lot to say here. Now, Shaolin's design is a bit interesting. Keep in mind, when designing your Shaolin, that there are two basic directions you can approach. First is what I call the furry cosplay. Shaolin has a few masks based on monkeys, meant to be a callback to Sun Wukong. So if you want to go as a man dressed as a monkey, well, pick any of those masks. But the thing is, I've never liked that look. Unless I'm playing the Shaolin hero skin, like the Shaolin hero skin of Sun Wukong himself, I really have no interest in the monkey aesthetic for Shaolin. I've always been more of a fan of the second version, the classic warrior monk aesthetic. You know, the warriors who actually hold themselves to discipline and austerity, that's what I look for. I've never cared for the Shaolin emotes or attitudes that make him a jittering monkey. Now, some of these warrior monk aesthetics have unique looks that can be a baldy, a braided kung fu teacher, a bearded master, or one of my personal favorites, the masked marauder.
That was the masked marauder.
Now, the Shaolin is always going to appear less bulky and more lithe than most of the other parts of the cast, so bear that in mind. I've never been a fan of the longer robe kind of attire, as I would rather Shaolin look like he has full range of motion and movement, but, I mean, to each their own. And when designing a staff, you're not going to have a lot of variety just because of how thin the staff is, so let's say that you're fighting a Shaolin, are you really going to be focusing on the design of the staff all that much? Most won't notice the finer details unless you use more bulky endings to it. So it's not something that I take a lot of time to think out, but I mean, you're going to have to decide it eventually anyway, so consider it, I suppose. But another thing to remember about Shaolin is that, in some capacity, the nature of their theological background has to be considered. Now, many of you might be saying, Raven, why does that matter? It's not going to come out in their design, is it? Well, no, not necessarily, but if you're going for the lore aspect, if you want to build a legend around your character or try to create a unique character at all, yeah, you're going to need to think about that when writing the lore for your character. How does their theological background tie into anything? You'll need to consider that. I mean, after all, they are monks. Now, as for me, I've created 3 Shaolin builds, and I will gladly share them with you. Now, you should be familiar with at least one of them, because she's shown up in a lot of my legends. You know him, Bao Shen, or David, as some call him, the monk who converted. Great legend, go check it out. Then there's Kai Chu Tu, the vampire monk. I talked about him in a video as well. And then there's Tao Jingyi. I haven't done a legend on him, but he is an ally of Tian Qilong, so consider that. And those are my 3 personal Shaolin designs. I always try to think of other ones that I might do, but those are the 3 that I really like the most. I actually tried to make one that was more of a waterbender kind of thing, but I'm still not satisfied with it, so I didn't want to add it here. But those are my 3. Now let's talk about executions. As always, if you want to know the full executions graded for Shaolin and how I graded those executions, you can go check out my executions graded series and you can see them all here. But I do want to at least tell you my favorite and my least favorite. So picking my favorite was very hard because there's a lot of really good Shaolin executions out there, but if I had to decide, if you had to twist my arm, I'm going to say cartwheel. Cartwheel is actually one of the first executions you get with Shaolin. It's a free one that you get, but it's so good. It shows martial prowess, it shows great use of the staff, and then a really cool cartwheel to finish off. It's one of my favorite executions from Shaolin, and anytime I make a Shaolin build, this execution almost always goes with it. Now, I will say, I did think about adding Maximum Shaolin because it's such a memeable one, but the problem I had with Maximum Shaolin is it's so goofy and so wild and out there, it only works on specific builds that I want to do. But cartwheel works for any build, which is why I think it is my favorite. It just works so well, it's so awesome, and just honestly, it's a technique. It's kind of like, man, I wish I could pull that off with my own bow staff. That'd be so sick. As for my least favorite, this was a little bit tricky. I had to think about what I don't like in a Shaolin execution, and I decided what it is, and it is monkeying around. I think I don't like this execution because not only is it not deadly, I would not consider this a lethal execution, but even then, it is the Shaolin literally putting his weapon on the opponent's shoulder, climbing up it like it's a tree limb, behaving like a monkey for no foreseeable reason. Like, the dude he's standing on can't even see what he's doing. This is purely for either himself or for people watching. Then jumps off and then bops him in the back of the head. It's a waste of time, it does nothing, and it just feeds into the Shaolin is a monkey stereotype that I just don't approve of. Look, if you're going with the Sun Wukong hero skin, that's one thing, that's fine, that fits with Sun Wukong. But I've never liked the Shaolin just being a silly monkey. For me, I have so much respect for the ways of the Shaolin monks and what the Shaolin monks represent and their austerity, their theological background, just how awesome they are. So I'm like, just making them silly, goofy monkey men, I'm not a fan of that. I like to see them taken a bit more seriously, but that's just me. So those are my favorite and least favorite Shaolin executions, and that is it with design and build. But I know what you guys really want to talk about. How do you play Shaolin? How do you play the Monk Man? So, let's not waste any time. Let's talk about Moveset. Alright, so when talking about Shaolin's moveset, a lot of people are a little split on Shaolin. Some say he's too strong, some say he's too weak, but I am of the Goldilocks opinion that he is just right. Shaolin is one of those characters that doesn't need a lot of unblockables, or he doesn't need every single move in the sync to make him good. I think you just give him a few good little pieces to his kit and he plays really, really well. So let's go ahead and talk about how Shaolin plays. Now I will go ahead and say that his stance looks a little funny here, because I don't like how he keeps his staff behind him like this while he uses his arm as the guard. But one thing that I think is so good about this when you play Shaolin is it becomes that much harder for your opponent to tell where your guard is. They have to look at your indicator and not your stance. So, for example, my brother will go into his stance real quick. Go ahead and switch your stances for me, bro. Notice how his position is so obvious at what stance he's in. Whereas with Shaolin, it's fist high, fist to the side, fist this way. It can be a little bit harder to tell, so that is one little piece of help for you. Now, in terms of his attacks, Shaolin has infinite attacks as long as he alternates. So he can go heavy, light, light, heavy, light, heavy, light, and he can keep going as long as the light is not blocked, because the light is not a superior light, and as long as he can keep using his stamina to throw attacks of different types. However, his attacks end if he ever throws a secondary heavy or a second light, unless it is on the same side. If the light is on the same side, he can throw up to 3. But if he throws it from another direction, that ends the combo. So now you're seeing how that essentially works. Now, keep special note of this. You do want to take advantage of that, because if you land that first light and keep throwing it, you can throw up to 3 strikes, and he can do nothing about them. However, you can't do it from the top. It is only from this side. Switch your stance, bro. Switch your stance. Or this side. It has to be from the right or left. All right. So now that you've seen that, let's talk about Shaolin's bash. Shaolin has a dash forward bash, a flying kick, and it grants a free light. Now I'm going to teach you guys a little trick about that kick that a lot of people don't know. You can delay the kick a little bit. Watch this, I'll show you. So we can do it right away, or hold it a second, and make it time out a little bit differently. I like to do this because if they try to dodge me, I might be able to catch them, so like that. Now, we've talked about the lights and the heavies. Now let's talk about a few other things. Let's talk about the zone. Shaolin has a 3-phase zone. 1, 2, 3. Each attack will come from the same side at about the same speed, and you can cancel at any time. Unless, of course, you run out of stamina, like I did. Let me get my stamina back. Okay. Now, Shaolin's blocks are used by his arm, so if my brother will throw an attack, do it again. It is a little bit weird that he does this with his forearm, and I'm not a big fan of it, but keep that in mind, so don't expect your animation to change very much when you block or parry like this. However, Shaolin has other options. For example, he has his dodge attack. Note that whenever you do the dodge attack, the attack will always come from the opposite direction that you dodged. So if I'm dodging to the right, the attack will come from the left, and vice versa. You also have your dash forward heavy. And as with any of them, any of your dodge attacks can be followed up by another attack. Shaolin also has access to a deflect. Yes, this is the only character in the roster who has a deflect that is not also an assassin. If you need a refresher on a deflect is a move where you dodge into the attack being thrown instead of blocking it, and not only will you evade damage, you will have the opportunity to counterattack. Shaolin's deflect is a heavy attack, so if my brother will throw an attack, please. Do it again. So that is essentially his deflect. Please learn the timing of that because it's one of Shaolin's best moves to do. Now, let's talk about the most important aspect of Shaolin, the key stance. When you perform an attack, whether it's a heavy or a light, if you hold down the button, you will enter key stance. This is key stance. You notice it, your stamina does not recharge, you cannot move, your weapon glows red, and you constantly hold this position. While in key stance, you have access to a few moves. But before we go into those, let's make sure we understand what key stance looks like. So, we can throw a heavy from this direction, and it looks like that. We can throw a heavy from up top, looks like this. You can throw a light, looks like this. A light from the other side, looks like this. And a light from the top looks like this. Every time you go into the key stance, it will remain the same. You will be in a position where you cannot move, but you are trapped in a position where you cannot regain or lose stamina, and you get access to some new moves. Now, you can be guard broken out of the stance, if my brother will demonstrate. Yeah. So there's not a lot you can do about that, but you have options. So let's start with your light options. From the key stance, Shaolin has a crushing counter light attack from any direction. Now, get this is important because I see a lot of people making this mistake. I can be in the heavy stance and still do the light attack. Please do not sleep on this. A lot of people think, oh, I'm in the heavy stance, I can only do my heavy response. But you can do your light response. Now, when I said crush and counter, I mean that if my brother throws an attack while I'm in this position, I can crush and counter it. Let me show you, I didn't expect him to do that. Let me get in position. All right, come do it, bro. There we go, just like that. You can crush and counter it as long as you time it just right. One more time for me, bro. Very good. Now, you're heavy. While in this position, in the key stance, you can do an undodgeable heavy. It is undodgeable, not unblockable, and one of my favorite things to do is do it from the top, because it will still track them even if they try to dodge. Pretty awesome, right? And it does not allow you to free flow into your combo, but it is a good way to throw your opponent off. Now, another thing to keep in mind, unlike a normal dodge attack, this one can be canceled. You don't need to commit to it. You can cancel it to bait your opponent. which helps. I think it's a good move. Now, the next thing, and this is one that everyone needs to know. Ready? Watch this. All right, the kick. You can press the guard break button to do a sort of tapping kick on your opponent, which guarantees a light. The kick can be dodged, but it will give you that light if you do it right. Now for the next part. After performing any key attack, you can hit the guard break button to do a sweeping maneuver. Well, sorry, it's not after the kick. I apologize. I should have mentioned that it's not after the kick. But any other attack, and it will allow you to do this. You can do it after the light following a kick, though. Got him. All right, so point being, what is the point of the sweeping attack? When you perform the sweeping attack, it guarantees a free heavy, and you can go right back into your key stance. Now, let's do a quick kick. Light, sweep. Very good. Now, I wanted to show that real quick. You can cancel the sweep. Let's do it again. You can cancel the sweep before it's done to bait your opponent, which is probably one of the best things I can say about the sweep from Valkyrie, from Shaolin. I was going to say, because not even Valkyrie can do that. Valkyrie cannot cancel her sweep. Sorry, I hit the wrong input. Let's do it again. So it is a good way to throw off your opponent and bait them into a dodge attack or some kind of other response. So keep all of that in mind. So the game plan with Shaolin is peppering attacks, baiting out with your key stance, catching with guard breaks, because as with most characters, guard break guarantees a heavy. And keep in mind, whenever you hold down the attack button, you will enter your key stance. And the key stance gives you options that you really want to make sure you capitalize on. Does that all make sense? Shaolin does not have a lot of super powerful moves. He doesn't have a lot of unblockables to do 50-50s, but he has great mix-up potential, and you want to make sure you understand all the facets of what make him so strong. Another thing that I want to point out is, because I see a lot of people mess this up, and I don't want you guys to. Remember I talked about this? You cannot hold down the light attack button to go into chi stance on the third hit, but you can on the second. Notice that. But you can't do it on the third. So keep that in mind. And that is essentially how you use Shaolin. So hope you guys learned a little something special from this. And hope you now appreciate Shaolin a little bit more. All right, I think that about wraps it up. Let's end the video. And that is all we have to say about Shaolin right now. I want to say this, though. I will say this from a personal standpoint. I really like Shaolin, and I said in a video some time ago that I think he's one of the more well-made and balanced heroes in the game, and I got a lot of hate for that, saying that he's way too OP. I don't agree with that. Don't get me wrong, he's a tough customer, and he's tough to read sometimes, but I don't think he's unbalanced. I don't think he's OP. I think it comes down to, I can't believe I'm saying this of all people, but I think it comes down to a skill issue. To play against a Shaolin, you need to be careful. You need to watch them very carefully. You need to make sure that you're not making mistakes in your reads, but playing against a Shaolin requires some patience and requires some skill. You can't just swing weapons and get wins against him. So I really do think Shaolin is one of those characters who's very viable, doesn't have to rely on a bunch of unblockables. Yes, I know that he has a flicker tech, which I wish they'd remove, but I don't think that breaks the character entirely. So I do enjoy Shaolin. I think he's awesome. I hope you guys enjoy him too. But what do you guys think? Do you like Shaolin? Do you not like Shaolin? Do you agree with the way we handled this video? Let me know down in the comment section below, respectfully. And I will see you in my next video. Take care.